Hey everybody, it's me Rita, and today I want to talk about some important lessons I learned back when I was homeless. Now I had been homeless before, but this particular time I was homeless in the middle of Wisconsin for 3.5 months in the middle of winter time. That is not something that is possible to do. Um, it's actually, you physically can't survive in that condition. So you have to actually survive by walking all the way through the night. And you have to find some place to sleep during the day to make up for that walking in the night. Um, you're not able to actually accomplish anything. You're not able to get a job. You're not able to take care of yourself, eat, sleep, take a shower. You're not able to do anything if you're in that condition. Now, occasionally people had homeless shelter services available, but there were about 4 times as many people as there were spaces in the homeless shelter, and that included women. So just because I was a woman didn't mean that I had that much extra space. I really didn't have. I pretty much always had to fight to the front of the homeless shelter line in order to have a bed to sleep at night. There was never enough time to do one's laundry, to get shower, and to have enough sleep at night. So you never got to catch up on your sleep. You never got to actually you never got to actually fill up your reservoirs and have what you needed. What it is like being homeless is it wears on you so badly, but in unexpected ways. You would think that the act of being homeless would be what wears you down the most. It's really not. Yes, having a home to come home to, it's secure, it's safe feeling, it feels good, it feels comfortable, but that's not what really makes homelessness so bad. What really makes homelessness so bad is that if you don't have your own little tent and your own little um, uh, like weatherproof, north wind proof sleeping bags, all ready to go, then pretty much you're pretty much subject to the rules of whatever homeless shelter you happen to find. And you need to, in Wisconsin in the middle of winter, you need to be able to get to the front of that line. I was always there, several hours early, and I would wait. I would wait in the cold, freezing cold, being still, but I would force myself to the front of the line and I would stay there so that I always had a bed at night, and I wasn't forced to walk the streets all night every night just to keep from freezing to death. So that was something that I was able to do, but it didn't do much. What people need to understand before they become homeless, or if they're about to be in that position, they need to understand that their resources, their emotional, physical, and sleep resources, mostly they're physical. Forget emotional, forget mental. You don't have time to get those reservoirs filled up. It's your physical resources that are going to be drained, because homeless shelters, and I've been homeless twice, so I can say this with great assurance. They do not allow you to get enough sleep. You have to come in. You have to eat dinner at a certain time. There are other things you need to get done, such as laundry, shower, bed, things like that. By the time you get to bed and you're forced to get up at 6 a.m. the next morning by curfew, you have not received enough sleep for all the physical labor you did the day before. And that lack of sleep, you require so much sleep every day. So as as you're going through your day and you require this much, and then this much, and then this much. But what you're actually getting when you're homeless is this much, and then you have that much, extra, and the other day's requirements needed the second day, and you're only getting this much, and then you have 3 days worth of sleep that you need to get, and you're only getting this much the third day, and it's really bad. So actually, it is your physical resources that get drowned the most when you become homeless, which is why I tell everyone, if they're about to become homeless, if they're looking for a home, I tell them, look, if you become homeless, there's one thing you need to do, is you need to get into a house as fast as possible. Forget the job. Forget how you set yourself up in the shelter. Forget how nice and safe and secure everything is. It doesn't matter. You will not have a chance to get enough sleep. Weekdays or weekends, you will not have a chance to do it. So you need to get a house now while you have the most physical strength that you have. You can nurture your mental and emotional state after you get a house, but your physical resources, your sleep deprivation, your hunger, the cold, those three things are going to just wipe you out. Where you started out the week strong and you thought, okay, I can go out and get a job in this condition. I'm doing okay. This is not so bad. Well, you're going to finish the week week. You're going to finish the week, and then you're going that by the end of the second week, you're going to be pretty much wiped out. And people don't understand, if you don't have a vehicle, if you're not able to like sleep in your vehicle, have any kind of control over that, all of your physical resources are spent on moving your stuff around, getting your stuff into and out of the shelter, calling it down, carrying it with you, everywhere you go. It is so bad. So I tell everyone who is about to be homeless or is in danger of being homeless, the first thing you need to do is get the house by whatever means necessary. Don't have an assurance, have a faith within yourself that once you get into your new home, you will have space and time to work on yourself mentally, to work on yourself emotionally, to give yourself the emotional nurturing or the emotional isolation, whatever it is you need at that time, to give yourself the emotional care that you need. But you will not be able to do anything while you're homeless, all of your physical resources are just being sucked out of you. They're just being drained right out of you. So what I tell everyone, hey everybody, oh, it's so great to see everybody. Hi guys. What I tell everybody is that the thing about being homeless, it's not emotionally or mentally exhausting. It is physically exhausting. And you need to get out of it as fast as possible by whatever means necessary. Go stay with a friend if you have to. That is better than being homeless. Forget about your pride, forget about, whatever. Okay, so this live video is about my time dealing with God and with being homeless and with dealing with the concept of not enough-ness, which is a very interesting concept. And it's a very ethereal, not solid, a very unsolid concept. But I want to go into that. I've always had a deep attachment to home, to the energy of a home, because I have a very naturally cold nature, more so than just about anybody I know. I do know one guy named Daniel who is slightly colder than I am. So I'm shoved against the cold end of the spectrum, and he is further than I am. But he's the only person I know who is colder than I am. Naturally, that's just my nature. That's just who I am as a person. It wasn't something that made me that way or whatever. I did have a very hard life, but before I had the hard life, I always had this naturally cold nature. So this is just who I am. And when I had a home, even though the things that happened in the home were horrible and were and quite abusive and quite sickening, the home itself, I loved it. I loved the warmth. I loved when the seasons changed. I loved when winter became spring and we would go out and we'd plant all these things in the garden. I would love the lilac bushes when spring turned to summer, and the lilac bushes would just, oh man, the smell of lilac. That is my favorite flower in the world. I'll tell anybody at any time, my favorite flower in the world is lilacs. I love lilacs. And when the seasons changed from spring to summer, and you got in your swimsuit and went out and you ran around in the sprinkler, and you made mud pies in the sunshine, and you set up the little mud pies that you made up on little shelves underneath a tree. I loved things like that. I loved the smell of summertime. I loved the smell of gyms. Somebody gets some gym membership. I used to just love walking to a gym, smelling all the endorphins and sweat. I loved watching my brother play basketball, with the neighborhood kids. That was something I really enjoyed doing. When the seasons changed from summer to fall, there was always going to be like baking and cooking. Oh, I love all the likes. Thank you guys. Mwah. Hi, hi Valerie. Hi Valerie, how you doing? Uh, Kakila. And the we do a lot of baking, you know, and my mom, whatever else she was a fantastic cook. She was a fantastic cook and a fantastic baker. And I would love the fall baking. And she kept me pretty sick at all times, so I wasn't allowed to eat hardly anything, but I would sometimes sneak a little here and there, and I loved it so much. And then when the seasons turned from fall to winter, and my brother would play hide and seek, all throughout the house, hide and seek in the dark. It was, especially when mom wasn't there, it was, oh man, it was so beautiful. We'd play board games, during the holidays, and so I've always had a very deep attachment to home, and I think it's because, to me, home is warm and friendly and loving and community, and it's the exact opposite of my nature. My nature is naturally pretty cold. It's naturally pretty ruthless, actually, and I like being in surroundings that complement my nature, not that increase it. I'm already pretty strong in what I am. I'm already pretty strong in what I am, but I like being in surroundings that kind of complement it and kind of balance me out, And so that was always what I thought would bother me the most about being homeless. But it was the physical exhaustion. It was the sleeplessness, the lack of sleep, the physical exhaustion, the lack of food. We would get food 3 times a day, but it wasn't enough for the amount of for the amount of energy that we were burning, walking around everywhere, trying to get, the money and the jobs and everything. And just, we were burning so much energy and not getting enough sleep. Oh yeah. So we weren't getting enough food even for that. And that's true for any homeless person. Anytime you see a homeless person, either give them food or give them money. Just don't even, don't worry about what they're using it for. And if you do worry about it, just give them food or food coupons or vouchers or something. Don't worry about it, but do feed homeless people. They really need it. They need it badly. Anyway, when I was homeless, one of the things I craved was to have that home environment, and I did attract it to myself. I attracted it to myself in the form of 3 very weird people. I had 3 very weird roommates, all of whom were completely inappropriate for who I was as a person. They were all underdeveloped, emotionally, mentally, maturely. They were all very immature. I probably was attracting people who were immature because I was immature. I don't know what was happening, but what I do know is that it was pretty bad. But at the beginning, it was nice having the home, and then the people would start affecting me. So I did know that I was attracting these incomplete, parts of people. And I also kind of knew that in addition to me attracting it, I didn't have as much control over my life as I normally did. This is something that God and I have always been in agreement about, that I've always had a lot of control over my life, over what happened to me. Yes, he put dark and bad things into my world, but I had a lot of control over how I responded to those dark and bad things. And God was with me every step of the way. So whenever I was homeless, I assumed that I would have the same level of control, and I did not. It was a lot more out of my control. And whenever I was talking to God about it, I had a feeling that God was kind of pushing me into a corner. God was kind of pushing me into a... I have to turn on my fan real fast. 1 second. It's a little hot in here. Let's get this on. Oh, that's better. All right. So, I had a feeling that hold on, let me try to see 14 minutes ago. Okay. I had a feeling that I would need to kind of figure out what was happening, because normally in my life, whenever I need something or want something or need a type of person or whatever, I'm able to kind of pick out what it is and then draw that thing into my life, draw that person in that situation into my life. And it wasn't happening anymore. I didn't have this level of control like I normally did. And I did feel like it was God's fault, which it was. God's doing, I should say. fault implies that there was something bad going on. And I did feel as if God was kind of pushing me into a corner. But I wasn't sure if he was pushing me into a corner or if he was just pushing me into a conduit through which I was meant to, kind of pour and kind of laser-like focus my energy. I really wasn't sure what was going on. I did know that I was pushing back against him quite a bit. I'm one of those people that I like being in control, but I don't need to be in control if it's absolutely necessary that, someone else or something else be in control. So I didn't feel like this was about teaching me to be humble or anything like that, or teaching me to be, or getting me off my high horse, or teaching me to be more dependent upon God. That's never been something that God and I have ever really done, and it wasn't the case this time either. I thought that maybe it would be, but it didn't feel like that. What was happening was there was something I needed to admit to God, and there was something that it took me a long time to figure out what was happening. It took me a long time to figure out that I needed to admit certain things that I needed to admit to myself, to God, to other people, the 12 steps. No, I'm kidding. I needed to admit that I didn't like what was happening in my life. I needed to admit that I had pushed the envelope in the kinds of people I hung out with and the kinds of things I did, and that I wasn't happy about the end result on a lot of that. And that I wanted to live a more normal life, a more conventional life. I've always been a very unconventional type of person. I'm sure you can imagine. And that was something that I needed to admit, that I actually did desire a more conventional life, a more normal life. And that didn't mean I had to get rid of any of my weird, freaky friends or anything like that. Oh, thank God. I love my weird, freaky friends. They're just like me. Yay! But I did need to make sure that I was honest with myself about those things. And in order to be honest with myself about them, I needed to be willing to talk to God, talk to other people. And that's where we come across this really ethereal concept of not enough-ness. My relationship with God, with homes, with homelessness, with money, with formless substance, with creating wealth, those things, not just drawing in wealth from another source, but creating wealth from the ground up, creating my own wealth. These things were all kind of muddled in my head. A lot of it came from the programming I received when I was a child. I had a really shitty example for womanhood from the main female role model I had in my life. That would have been my mother, or as I like to call her, my egg donor. Okay, I know that's a little over the top. She's actually sitting right over there. She's in an urn of ashes. I should get her out and show her to you guys. No, her ashes are right over there, so I could get her out. And, hey guys, this is my mom. But what she did was she would make me sick on purpose. She would deliberately, purposely make me sick in order for her to receive attention and love and money and cards and gifts from other people. And this is called Munchausen's by Proxy. She also had Munchausen's disorder, which was where she made herself sick on purpose when she wasn't sick, but she made herself sick on purpose to get attention and love and money and, and manipulate other people the way she wanted to from other people. And this was something that I knew what she was from the age of 4. I don't know why I knew about her. I don't know why I knew what her problem was at the age of 4, but my siblings, one of them is older than me, one of them is younger than me, they knew there was something wrong with her, but they didn't know how bad she was until like around age 15. Then they both kind of grew up quickly and kind of realized, oh my God, and in their own ways they responded to that. But the way I always knew what she was, and you would think that would have given me a huge advantage, which in many ways it did. It kept me from feeling at all guilty. both of my siblings have felt a huge amount of guilt throughout their lifetimes because they were kind of indoctrinated in guilt as a children. I never felt this guilt. I never felt guilty. I knew that it wasn't me. I knew that it was her, and I knew that she was crazy. I knew that other moms weren't like her, and that was something that I learned because I went over to my friend's house, and her mom came in and said, "Hey, you shouldn't have done this. This is a problem." And then she left. And I said, "Hey, do you want me to ask to stay late so that your mom forgets about that?" And she says, "Why?" And I said, "So that she doesn't beat you up over and over again after we leave," which is, of course, what she's going to do. And my friend was like, "No, that was it. That was her punishing me. She was telling me not to do it." I was like, "What? What are you talking about? I don't even know what you're talking about." So that was my first clue that my own mother wasn't like other mommies. And I've always been, even today, I'm a huge lover of beauty, things that are beautiful, people that are beautiful. I love beautiful people. And that was my ugly friend that happened to, and her ugly mom. And then I wanted to go to my pretty friend's house, my best friend's house. She was my best friend because she was the prettiest, and her mom was the prettiest too. So I went over to her house. So the first example happened at Bethany's house, and the second example happened at Alice's house. And I went over to Alice's house, and Alice was perfect. Alice looked perfect. She was so pretty. And her mom looked perfect, and she was so pretty too. And I tried to figure out, I tried to get Alice in trouble so that I could see how her mom responded to it. What happened was, I think I tried to get myself in trouble, and what I ended up doing was getting Alice in trouble. And her mom she didn't care. I mean, she cared, but she didn't care like my mom did. She wasn't like deeply emotionally, heavily invested in everything being perfect, or she was going to freak out. Her mom actually had amounts of emotional intelligence in her. It was crazy. It was a new concept to me. Her mom did not get angry. She did not punish her. She did not punish anything. She forgot about it. She forgot about it the entire day. I stayed the entire day to see how she would respond. She never once dragged her aside and spanked her and whispered nasty things into her ear and all kinds of things. None of that happened to Alice and her beautiful mom, Melissa, And so that was something that at the age of 4, I knew that there was something wrong with my mom, and that other moms were like I pictured moms should be. Other moms really were like that. Other moms really were nice, normal, loving, helpful, beautiful moms. And so my mom not only made me sick on purpose and made herself sick on purpose, she made a living out of being weak and helpless. And that was something that, if you're a girl, it's one thing, like if you're a guy, you kind of train your son to only be attracted to women who are super weak and super helpless and will manipulate you. And if you're a girl, it trains you to be weak and helpless on purpose. It's a really sickening thing. And of course, I didn't want to be like her. I didn't want to be what she was. But boy, it was hard to fight against that constant onslaught of training and teaching in that particular thing. So when it came to working, my mom felt that women shouldn't work. They should work by working in the home and being homemakers and taking care of the home and the family, which I've always believed. When it comes to traditional versus modern, I've always been half traditional, half modern. I believe that we should have both, the best of the modern world and the best of the traditional world. But I never got the concept that girls could work, or that they should work, or that if they did work, they should make more. They shouldn't make more than their. My mom, the teaching she pretty much gave me was, oh, well, if you're going to earn money, at least don't make more than your husband. Well, of course, that's total crap. As long as you allow your husband to provide for you, to pay the rent or most of the bills, or to contribute to the providing of your family, that act of providing, you could be making 2.5 million a year, and he could be making 40,000 a year, and he is still the man of the house because he's engaging in providing activity for your family. And you can still be making 50 times, 50,000 times as much as he does, and there's not a problem. But that's not what I was trained. That's not what I was taught. I was taught that women were meant to pretty much throw a fit every time somebody wanted them to do any work. And that was so funny because she had her children do all of her work. She never actually lifted a finger at all. And so and if we didn't do it correctly the first time, she would have us do it the whole thing over again from the beginning 5 more times. And they had to be perfect all 5 times, or she would just keep adding on, and we would go into the wee hours of the morning still on our punishment from her. She was very vindictive, very vindictive. And so when it came to being homeless and working and making money, I had really twisted views of money, and I had really twisted views of not enough-ness. People say, I have to get the dandruff off of me. People say that that there's something clarifying about having kind of a void inside of you. I think what they mean by that is that it's clarifying if you're emotionally intelligent and you're able to just you're able to just feel that emotional clarity inside of yourself. It feels clean. It feels empty. It doesn't feel like a void. It just feels like it's clean and empty, like you don't have any emotional baggage inside of you. That's what that feels like. And I think that when people put down materialism or putting things ahead of family, I think that what they're putting down is that they're trying to say that, oh, well, family's more important than anything in the world. I would say that emotional maturity is more important than anything in the world. You can enjoy anything. You can enjoy materialism. You can enjoy family. You can enjoy anything in the world as long as you have emotional maturity on the inside of yourself. But for that, you need to be able to get rid of your emotional baggage. When I was homeless, I didn't feel homeless in some ways that I should have felt. And I felt too drained in other ways that I shouldn't have felt drained in. I felt that I was meant to have a lot of blessings, which I am. And we're all meant to have a lot of blessings in this world. I was meant to have them easily and fruitfully, which I am. We are all meant to have blessings easily and fruitfully. But in order to learn how to do things easily and with great efficiency, we first have to learn how to do them, which usually takes a lot of hard work. In order to master a subject or a topic or a concept, it takes a lot of, blood, sweat, and tears to just grind out the skills that are necessary to do that thing in a simple and easy and straightforward and efficient manner. So I think this is the reason why some people, they start out and they just financially, they just have brilliant financial skills and they do great. And some people, they don't. They start off and they're constantly working so hard to make ends meet, and they don't have enough, and they don't have enough money, and they don't, and they're having to work so hard for just a little bit of money. But then later on in their lives, they're able to work only a small amount and make a huge amount of money. And it's because their efficiency, they mastered their skill set, they mastered their business skills, they mastered their money and knowledge skills to the point to where money was able to come in efficiently and easily, like it's always supposed to be able to come in. But first you have to master the skills, and you have to master your money knowledge, and that takes time, and that takes the grit and determination to get you to the easy place. And when I was homeless, I did not have any of these skills. I was taught by the female role model in my life to be the perfect housewife, to be the perfect Southern belle. Gingham dresses, lace pinafores, Betty Crocker lifestyle, And I loved those things because I was taught to really appreciate them. But I wasn't taught to appreciate them by being myself. I was taught to just appreciate them by pretending to be this person. Today, my sister is struggling with that herself. And I think that's something that we all have to struggle with, especially if we come from the kind of background that I came from. But even if we don't, even if we come from just a normal, healthy background, I think we have to, I think a lot of us struggle with taking normal, conventional wisdom that really does make sense and really does work itself out in the end, and still tailoring it and customizing it to be our, our thing, our life, not just a life that we're living. The concept of not enoughness was very difficult for me to grasp because for a long time, for many years, I didn't realize that I didn't feel like I was good enough. I thought that I felt like I was good enough. I thought that I felt more than good enough. And the truth was, I felt a lot of arrogance because I'm an alpha female, and I'm not an alpha female anymore. I'm a super alpha. And now I'm like even a stronger alpha than I was before because I've grown, and all life grows and expands. But at the time, I didn't realize that what I was feeling was insecurity and that I was actually just being arrogant. I didn't realize that what I was actually feeling was not being enough. I thought that I felt like I was more than enough and that I was perfect and that I was perfect in every way. And I didn't realize how insecure I actually was. It took me a long time to realize that. As soon as I understood that I felt insecure, I was able to immediately go and work on it. I was able to immediately go and get it done. But it took me a long time to understand that because being an alpha female, I was always the one in the leadership position. I was always the one who I knew what to do and I knew how to do it. I knew how to get it all done. And so when I was homeless, I had a lot of lack of knowledge on how to fix it. I was working hard, really hard to earn money, and it wasn't enough. But I knew I was working really hard and with great intent and purpose. So I knew it wasn't the amount of hard work that was going to fix it. I was praying every night, very sincerely, being very open and honest with God about everything, telling him what I needed. So I knew it wasn't lack of communication with God. I was being very proactive. I was looking for higher levels of living, higher levels of working, higher money. I was being a little less picky. I was starting to kind of get the concepts of efficiency down a little bit more, but I still wasn't getting it. And the reason why God had put me in that position, and this is a position that God did put me in, especially the second time, the time that I was homeless in Wisconsin in the middle of winter time. That time, it was very much a God thing. It was not a Rita thing, but I didn't understand what was happening. I wasn't sure at first if it was a God thing or if it was a Rita thing. I was trying to make sure I was taking responsibility for everything in my life. Okay, am I doing this right? Is there something that I'm missing? Was I a bitch in some way that I should apologize for? Do I need to nurture this relationship? What's going on? And it took me a while to realize, oh, it's not me. Oh, this is a God thing. Oh, okay, I need to go talk to him about this. I am already talking to him, but I need to go find out what he's trying to show me, because clearly, and clearly it's not me anymore. I've really narrowed it down. And when I finally, I kept asking him, and it kept pushing me further and further into a state of desperation. And I finally got the fact that I was being pushed into a corner. I wasn't being pushed into a tunnel where I was meant to, like a conduit, where I was meant to focus my energy on a single thing, because everything I was focusing my energy on, it was all turning to ash and to dust as soon as I started on it. It was something where I was being pushed into a corner, and I was meant to be pushed into a corner. And I finally got that concept. And this is near the end of the time when I was homeless. And the message I finally sat down and got enough clarity from God that I finally understood that I needed to be honest about the fact that I wasn't happy about certain areas of my life. I wasn't happy with my relationship with my family, with the depth of my relationship with my family. We'd always have kind of a funny, shallow kind of relationship, but not a deep, meaningful one. So I need to be honest about that. I needed to be honest about the fact that I now had the emotional capacity to handle a deeper relationship, which for years before in my life, I never had that emotional capacity, nor did I ever feel the need to ever have the emotional capacity. I liked being cold nature. I liked being a cold and feeling bitch. I liked not needing people that much. Yes, I needed them a little bit, but not that much. And I kind of enjoyed being in that position. And it served me well for many years, but I was now maturing to the point to where it was no longer serving me. And I needed to admit that to God. I needed to admit that to myself. And I needed to, another thing I needed to admit to myself was the fact that I wasn't happy with not making things mine as much as I wanted them to be. Today I'm sitting in a room that is almost entirely designed by me, and I'm wearing a T-shirt that I have worn probably every day for a month or two. And it's really nasty. It's pretty grody. Yeah, it smells pretty bad too. I don't care. This is what I like to wear, and this is who I am when I'm at home. Obviously, when I go out in public, I wear clean clothes and I dress up. But I actually put on underwear. But this, this is comfortable to me. This is who I am. This is part of who I am as a person, who I am as Rita, and I needed to admit to myself that I wasn't happy with trying to live a conventional life without making it my own. I did admit that I did find out that I needed to live, that I wanted to live a conventional life, but I needed to do it in a way that made me feel comfortable, not just a way that was just a generic conventionalism, just kind of floating out there in some amorphous space. It needed to be something that was a reified version of conventional life. And that's about when I got back home from that experience, I started speaking out a lot more about how I thought and how I felt. And even though I'd always been very forthright and open and powerful with people verbally before, that really was dependent upon how much support, how much verbal and personal support I was getting from the people around me at the time. And if I wasn't getting a lot, I didn't open my mouth very much. And so that was dependent upon external circumstances. Now I got back from this homeless experience in Wisconsin, and I'm suddenly saying, you know what? I think that's shitty. And I've always watched these videos with you, not because I actually like them, but because you asked me to. That's how much I love you, And but I actually hate them. That was something I never said before. I was always willing to just do what other people thought was, do what made them happy, as long as it wasn't pushing against me too far. If it pushed me against me too far, then yeah, I would throw a fit. But not that that's a healthy way of dealing with anything. But I didn't understand how much not enoughness I had in my life at the time that I was homeless. And that is really what made me homeless, was this emptiness, empty space that was not being written by me. We write our worlds. We write the worlds that we have. Hold on, let me check on the time. We decide what we want in life, and we write it into existence. In the Bible, it's the verse says, it says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God. The Word was with God, and the Word was God. And the concept that that words are things, that thoughts are things, that words are things, that's something that is promulgated by the law of attraction, Bob Proctor, the law of creation. law of attraction assumes that there's something out there that you don't have and that you need, and you're going to draw it towards you. But you don't have to draw it towards you if it's out there. You can also just create it. You can also create it out of nothing. If you kept a plant, if you sowed a seed in a pot, and you measured how much water you put into the plant, and the plant grew, the amount that the plant grew would not equal, it would be far more than the amount of water you put into it. So the very act of growing a plant in and of itself is a miracle. It's a fucking miracle. It's a fucking miracle to grow a plant. I mean, it's being created out of nothing. You know, there's sunshine, air, water. Yeah, there are certain conditions in which it grows, but the truth is the amount of water you put into it is way less than the amount of plant that grows out of it. There's no scientific cause and effect in that. It is literally a miracle every single time a plant or a tree grows. It's a fucking miracle. The idea that a couple of teenagers can not use a condom and they get hold on, let me put my hair over here. And they get pregnant, and these teenagers they get pregnant and they're creating this new life that is a new soul. It has consciousness. I mean, in the beginning, you know, as a fetus, it doesn't have consciousness. As a baby, it barely has consciousness. It knows enough to cry when it's hungry or wet or in pain, but pretty much when it gets to toddlerhood, it starts thinking for itself. He or she starts thinking for himself or herself. And that's like, there's no rhyme or reason to it. There's no scientific explanation for that. It's just a miraculous thing that occurs. And it happens all the time. You know, teenagers who didn't use a condom, they have babies all the time. People go out and they get pots and soil and they plant a seed and they water it and they grow plants all the time. It's a fucking miracle. When I was homeless, it was the act of being homeless was the end result of all of the piling up of not enoughness that I'd had in my life. It got more and more and more, larger amounts of not enoughness in my life, and that is what made me homeless. And if you're poor, that is also what is making you poor. If you live in a poor nation, that is also what is making your nation poor. It is this. If you leave nature to do its own thing, it naturally produces an overabundance. An apple tree produces tens of thousands of seeds over its lifetime, way more than it needs to just duplicate itself. And yet, and feed all the animals and all the people, and yet it still produces superfluous amounts of abundance, like we're all supposed to have. So if you don't have money in your life, it's because you're not allowing nature to just take its natural course. If you don't have, you know, and over here in the description, you know, there's the, you know, the link if you want to bless me financially. But guys, you know, that's an exchange of energy. That's what money is. It's an exchange of energy. If you yourself are poor, then you're not allowing nature to just do its own thing. There's something that you're doing to stop it, to keep the plant from growing any bigger, to keep the child from having a soul. This all happens all on its own. The miracles of nature happen all by themselves. They don't need your help. You know, if you're not there to water and sun the apple tree, it's still going to grow more apples. It's still going to grow thousands and thousands of seeds, tens of thousands of seeds from the one apple tree. You don't have to be there to do it. It's still going to do it on its own. The teenagers, you know, who don't use a condom and they have the child, these teenagers, they've created a soul, they've created a life, and very little went into it. One drunken fucking session at night in the back of his car, you know, boom, you know, you got yourself a child, got yourself a new soul in this world. That's a big fucking deal. And yet it happens all the time. And there's no effort that needs to go into it. Literally, that's the way wealth is. Wealth is the same thing. There's no effort that needs to go into it. It'll just happen all on its own. It'll happen all by itself. People naturally become wealthy. That is their natural state. So if you're poor, it's because you're doing something to kill off the miracle of the plant. If you live in a poor nation, or if you live in a nation that is constantly subjected to violence, it's because you're doing something to kill off what would naturally occur just all on its own, all by itself, without any help from you, without any help from anybody else. And that's something that people don't understand. They think that to be poor is to be godly. That's a bunch of crock. That's the biggest bunch of crap I've ever heard in my life. God is rich. God is so fucking rich. He is the richest fucking bastard in the entire world. If you want to be like God, you have to learn how to be rich too. That's what rich is like. But you don't actually have to learn how to do it. That's the secret here. That's the dirty little secret in all the laws of energy and the law of attraction, the law of creation. That's the dirty little secret. Shh, don't tell anybody. The dirty little secret is that it will happen all on its own. If it's not happening all by itself, without you even hardly having to try, it's because you're doing something to stop it. You're bringing an energy of not enoughness into your world, and you're killing the plant with that. The plant keeps trying to grow all by itself, all on its own, without any help from you, and you keep doing something to shut it down and cut it down. When I was homeless, and I needed to hear that message from God that I wasn't happy with my life. I needed to admit that to myself. Even though I had created everything in my life, even though I had all that control over my life and everything had worked out exactly the way I told it to, I didn't want it to be that way. I wasn't truly happy with it. I was doing what I thought I should be doing more than what I really wanted to do, what I really desired to do. And God, God is not a rapist. He's not a robot maker. He doesn't force us to do anything that we don't want to do. He wants us to have what we all desire. God desires for every single human being to have what we desire. That is what God is, a facilitator of lavishly abundant life. That is what he does. He's a facilitator of lavish abundance, lavishly abundant life. And you are meant to be wealthy. You are meant to have healthy, successful relationships. You are meant to have immortal life. All of these things are what you're supposed to have. And they will happen all by themselves. And if they're not happening all by themselves, it's because you're bringing a spirit of not enoughness into your world. And you're using that spirit to kill off the life that you have naturally growing inside of you without any help from you. You don't need to do a damn thing. You don't need to do a damn thing. It'll happen all on its own. I needed to admit to myself what was happening. I needed to admit to myself that I was unhappy with the way my life was. And because I had literally controlled and created everything that was in my life, I literally done everything. It was really hard for me to admit that I was unhappy with it, because literally I'd brought it all into my world. I had deliberately, purposely created everything in my life. So you would think that I would be happy, with what was in there, with what was in my life. But I wasn't happy with it. And I didn't know it. I didn't allow myself to feel that. I didn't allow myself to. I wasn't listening to my heart. My brain was going on overtime. My brain was getting all these things accomplished. My heart was unhappy with what I was doing. I wasn't being true to myself. I wasn't Rita-fying everything, making everything like Rita, customizing it to Rita's needs and desires and what Rita wants to do. And that was something that was the message. God was forcing me into the corner. He was forcing me up against the corner and saying, okay, you're really not admitting this to yourself. And it took one hell of a strong push into that corner before I finally realized, before I finally got the message. And it wasn't even that got the message. I mean, I literally sat down and finally, I went through layers of understanding of okay, it's not that, it's not me, it must be God. Okay, what's it about God? Is it about this? Is it about that? You know, I'm over here muscle testing, asking God questions. You know, finally, I got the answer, which was that I needed to admit these things to myself. I think that when people create not enough-ness in their lives, they're creating a spirit of death. They're creating a spirit of anti-life. Because again, we're supposed to be wealthy, we're supposed to be immortal, and we're supposed to be healthy, hot as fuck. We're supposed to have happy, healthy relationships in our life, in all of our lives in every way. So literally, we're supposed to be rolling in massive human wealth. Everything that humans define as wealth: health, wealth, happiness, relationships, love, understanding, resources, pretty much everything, being hot and sexy, pretty much everything that humans value. We're meant to be rolling in all of those forms of life, all of those forms of human happiness. And if we're not, it's because we're doing something to kill it off. The sun and the rain and the earth, apple trees will continue to push out tens of thousands of seeds that will never stop growing, that will never stop producing lavish amounts of abundance. We don't need to be there. You know, we don't need to think about it. We don't need to pray that it will happen. We don't need to force it down the path. We don't need to learn how to do it. No, the apple tree is fucking doing it all on its own without any of our help. And the same thing happens. Wealth comes to us all on its own without any of our help. And immortal life comes to us all on its own without any of our help. And we're talking about biological immortality. People really do choose when they live and when they die. It's a really controversial topic. I'm not covering it in this video. I will cover it probably in a video soon, though, because it needs to be talked about. But we are meant to have as much wealth as we want, as we desire, way more than that, as much immortal biological life that we desire, in hot and sexy conditions while we're doing it, way more than that. We're meant to have happy, healthy relationships. We're meant to be unbelievably ecstatic in all of our connections with our family, our friends, our loved ones, our fuck buddy, our lovers, our husbands, wives, you know, friends, everybody, the communities, our, you know, are the people we're helping, the people who are helping us. We're meant to be unbelievably happy in these connections. And if we don't have any of these things or one of these things, it's because you've brought a spirit of not enoughness into your world. You've created it and brought it in, and you're using it as kind of like a weed killer or a pest repellent, and you're just killing off the life that would normally be just growing all on its own. I think it's important that when you finish this video, I think it's important that you sit down and think, is there something that my heart desires that I'm not admitting to myself? That was the big lesson I learned from my homelessness, being homeless in Wisconsin in the middle of wintertime, just like I've described to you. That 3.5 months like that, it was absolutely horrendous. And the thing that I learned from that was that I was not being honest with myself. It took that much backing me into a corner by God himself to get me to admit that. That's how much I was in denial about it. That's how much I was not being true to myself. You know what I do now? You know what I do now? Fucking now? I sit constantly throughout the day and I think, okay, what do I think about this? And how do I feel about this? If I don't feel good about it, I don't do it. I don't think about it. I don't allow it in my life. And if I feel mostly good about it, but there's something wrong, I immediately sit down and think, okay, what is it that I don't like about this? What is it that's making me feel bad about this? Because we're meant to feel good all the time. And that should be the only thing you ever think about during the day. If you hate your job, go find a job that you love and only do that. If you are hating a member of your family or a friend, you need to figure out what would make you really ecstatically happy with that person, or if you need to just kind of be away from them for now because you're not energetically mismatching and clashing up against each other. It's really important, guys, that you understand that the way you think and the way you feel, those are tools that God gave you. If you don't think something good about something, but you do feel something good about it, that's information that you need. Your brain has information that your heart does not have, and your heart has information that your brain doesn't have. Guys, I'm a thinker personality type, so I'm dominant in my brain-based traits. I don't listen to my heart very often. But let me tell you something, guys. I now listen to my heart all the fucking time. I'm now constantly in touch with my heart. Okay, how do I feel about this? Do I feel good or do I not? Do I feel neutral? If I don't feel good on it, if I don't feel ecstatically, blissfully happy on it, I don't even do it. I don't think about it. I don't allow it to interrupt my day. I only keep the things in my life that I love, that I really, truly love, and that my brain likes too. I am constant in communication with both of them now, not just my brain-based traits. And guys, if you're a feeler personality type, you're probably really focused on what your heart feels like, but you're not necessarily doing what makes your brain happy, okay? So if you're a feeler personality type, you probably know that because you've probably been called over-emotional by all the thinker personality types in your life. When that happens, you're probably really dominant in your heart-based traits, so you really pay attention to how you feel, if you feel good or if you feel bad. But you may not be trying to do what also makes your brain feel good. Your brain-based traits are things like logic, reason, rationality. And if your brain doesn't feel good on those things, then there's a mismatch. You need to make sure that both your brain and your heart are listened to. And thinker personality types like me out there, you guys need to understand that this is not some emotional excess, no. People with heart-based traits, they are stronger than we are on some things. You need to know how to use this tool. You need to practice using this tool by constantly throughout the day asking yourself, okay, what do I think about this? And how do I feel about this? And make those two separate questions. Answer them separately. Okay, guys, hold on. Let me drink some water. My relationship with God has always been one of deep interest and loving care and massive, massive frolicking on the floor of his throne room, both in pleasure and in angry passion. I have stood in his throne room many thousands of times, screaming at him and crying and being miserable. And a lot of that was all self-inflicted. Well, okay, all of it was self-inflicted. It wasn't that God wasn't taking care of me. It's that I was still in my brain-based traits. As a thinker personality type, I really like logic and rationality. And for many years, I was so uncomfortable with emotions, so uncomfortable with it. And guys, if you're a feeler personality type, you can have the same problem only in reverse, where you're very comfortable with emotions, but you're not very comfortable with logic and rationality, okay? So don't think that just because you're strong in emotions, don't think that problem can't be reversed, okay? It can be the same thing in reverse. But when I was a thinker personality type only, when I didn't have any emotional skills developed at all, I was a mess. I was a freaking mess. I was out of touch with myself. I was over compartmentalized. I've always been a pretty highly compartmentalized person, but due to my background, due to my nature, due to the coldness of my nature, and being a thinker personality type, I was over compartmentalized. I was keeping things overly separate from each other. I didn't just keep things in separate boxes. The boxes weren't even touching each other. I sometimes had boxes in a different world where they were hidden from those boxes. I'm a 5 on the, if anybody knows the Enneagram scales, I'm a 5. And fives are people who, they like their secrets. They don't like divulging any information at all. They like drawing in information, not divulging any information. That meant that I was also not good at sharing. And if I did share, it was deliberately on purpose, and maybe it only happened once or twice a year. It wasn't something that came naturally to me. Well, guess what, guys? I'm doing daily Facebook Live videos now. Fucking A. I've gotten over that shit. But guys, remember that if you are creating not enoughness in your world, that's something that you yourself are creating. It does not just happen to be there. It's not just something that is just happens to be floating around. No, 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 no. There is no chance. You have 100% complete and total control over your life. And if you don't have hot, sexy body that you are incredibly happy with, biological immortality, if you're not rolling in massive amounts of way overabundant wealth, just like the apple tree producing the tens of thousands of apple seeds over its lifetime, if you are not ecstatically happy and deeply connected and just feeling so blissfully ecstatic and joyful and at peace and loving in all of your relationships, if all of those things aren't true for you, there is a ball of clear white deathly not enoughness that's floating around there, killing off and withering all the plants of natural life that would normally be growing up out of that. So just think about that, guys. If your life is not going the way you want it to, look for the ball of not enoughness that's floating around, killing everything off. Because normally you'd be happy. That's the way things are naturally supposed to be. God bless you. Mwah. God bless you. I'll see you next time.